Well, hello everyone, it's Kevin here from Mobile DJ Remastered. Thank you so much for joining me on my channel. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. We come out with great tips and tricks to help up your DJ game. And also, I've been doing a lot of gig logs lately so that you guys can kind of see how I do things. I know it always helps to see people's workflow and the kind of events and adventures they have. So any case, I love watching all of my subscribed DJs gig logs and other things. So hopefully you guys like mine. Today, what I want to do is talk about planning for a school dance. Okay, so I just came off of 2 homecomings for this season, 2021, and I had some good thoughts that I thought I'd share with you guys around planning and getting everything organized for the homecoming dances. So this could probably be applied to proms or other kinds of school formals, but essentially I'm talking about the homecoming experience that I just had recently. I just did 2 big schools. We'll call it 1 medium school and then 1 large school. So what I'm gonna do is talk you guys through a couple points, actually a list of things that I think are critical to successful events. And essentially, here's the rundown. I'm gonna first talk about the event timeline. I'm gonna talk about music and music selection. I'm gonna talk about sound, lighting, electricity, staging, okay? And also logistics. So hopefully those things are of interest to you. Feel free to jump forward through the video if you don't want to hear what I have to say about some of the topics or whatnot, if you want to zip right to a specific topic. Okay, guys, so first up is about the timeline, the event itself. And this is something that you're going to derive, okay? You're going to receive from the administrators holding the event. It might be a PTO, it might be the student council, it might be a specific teacher that's running the school dance. Whatever it is, get that information from the committee. Get that information because you want to know the timeline, of course, start and stop, but also you want to know the activity times. So perhaps if it's a homecoming, you're going to have the homecoming court announcement. You're going to have that probably in the middle or 2/3 of the way through. That's typically when it's done. But each school is going to have their own kind of convention or their own kind of rules that they usually follow or their things that they usually do. So they'll tell you that. So if you don't know, if you're not familiar with whatever the dance is, you might want to do some research and you'll have some pointed questions that you can ask them. For example, if it's a homecoming court, when do we do that? If it's a prom, when do we crown the queen and the king or the royal court or whatever we're going to call it? So make sure to get that timeline and all the events, all the special things. You might even ask like, okay, are there any other activities you guys want me to announce or MC or tell the kids about? Because that's really important for you to know, because you do not want to find out that kind of stuff like real time. I mean, of course people can tell you, hey, DJ, can you tell the kids to remember to go grab a water out of the water bucket or whatever? Certainly you can be a real-time, information taker and you can repeat things on the microphone and be a good MC. But it's great to have those things planned out in advance. It's good to know what they're going to need you for, okay? It's really important to have that timeline in your mind. And so that you stick to the plan as best you can and you nail the timing. Because guys, it's going to go by fast. The clock can get away from you. In my experience, a school event is much more fast-paced and there's a lot more commotion than a wedding or some other event that might have a little bit of downtime as you're, maybe between songs or between different sections of the evening, between cocktail and dinner or whatever. So school, I find myself like on the decks the whole time. So I want to make sure I've got a good plan going in. So that's the event timeline. Make sure you get that from your administrators and that you know what's up. So other things that you might ask them as well under this activity bucket is, hey, are there any reminders you want me to tell the kids? Are there anything that you want me to say over the microphone? Those are good things to ask when you're planning with administrators. Okay. The next one, guys, is all about music. And this is probably I have the most to say about this. Go figure, because we're DJs, right? And music's very important and you have to nail it. Do you have to be perfect? Yes. Okay. You cannot, one curveball, maybe you could get away with, one bad misstep, two bad missteps, you could probably get away with and recover, but you better recover well and you better get back on track, because I could imagine things could snowball quickly. The kids are sophisticated in their listening. They're also fickle. They're also almost like a mob mentality. So if there's someone who, this song sucks, and they start to groan or whatever, that's going to get contagious real fast and it's going to build. Okay. So you have to have a plan for reacting to that, and have some thick skin, because that's good. That might happen here and there. But so any case, let me tell you about how I thought and how I approach music for these 2 homecoming dances that I did recently. First, I sourced requests from the students. Very important. Intuitively or by experience, that each school is going to have their own jams, their own culture, their own music that they listen to together or apart. They're going to have different cultural connections. They're just going to have different music tastes. So you got to tune into that. How do you do that? Well, the shortcut way is to ask students for song requests very soon to the event. So I'm talking 3 weeks, 2 weeks before the event. What are some, and my 2 questions are, hey, what jam do you think would get your crew up and dancing at this homecoming? My other question is, hey, what jam do you have to, what song do you have to hear at this homecoming? So I kind of give them 2 different perspectives or 2 different questions. And I take those questions, I use a Google form. That's been super easy. Most students are used to using Google Docs, Google Drive, all the Google tools. I put it on a Google form and I give it to the administrators. And I say, hey, can you circulate this with the students and just blast it out? And now it's a little dangerous, because you're going to get a lot of responses. I got 200 or 300 responses from a couple of these, from each dance. Okay. And that was good. And I'll tell you what I did with those, but that was really good because people are contributing. It's a crowdsourcing, and I'm crowdsourcing the culture of the school. It's real important. Some songs are probably a safe bet, or maybe even universal. We'll talk about that in a minute, but I think that's a really good thing. And you'll find through that process, you might find these little, nuanced songs that are going to pop off. One of these homecomings, it was Dark Horse by Katy Perry. And I wouldn't have chosen that, left to my own devices. I would have went with maybe a different Katy Perry song or no Katy Perry at all. But I dropped Dark Horse for this because I saw several requests, and bam, it went off. It was so good. Everybody loved it. So in any case, it's just, I don't know what, it's connected with the DNA of the student body, that it was coming to that homecoming. And guess what? It worked. And that's what you want. You want jams that'll work. You want bangers that'll work for these kids. So source requests from the students. I use a Google form. You could do any kind of questionnaire. You could even have the student council or whoever's in charge source through there. Maybe they have a survey tool or something like that. That's fine. But the important part is get that information from the students. Okay, cool. Once you get some results, once you get those song requests, okay, and this is all pre-event, very key. Once you get that list of songs, go through it and immediately go through. And what I did is I'm like, okay, here's some songs I know and I feel like would work. Okay, so Low by Flo Rida. Okay, boom, that's gonna go. Cha-Cha Slide, that's just gonna go with kids today. Okay, it's just gonna happen. It's gonna work. I know maybe line dances aren't great for some other groups or adults and weddings and stuff like that, but the line dances just work. The classics work for the school dances. So grab those right off the bat, and I just delete them. I take them and I put them over in my crate as I'm building. I just copy them in my crate and I delete out of my list. So the list is shorter. Then I look for dupes. Okay, I do look for duplicates or triplicates or whatever, because I'm like, okay, where are those songs that Dark Horse? Okay, I wouldn't have thought to play that or whatever. And if I just saw one Dark Horse Katy Perry request, I probably would have thrown it out, to be honest. But I saw so many, I'm like, oh, this has got to be, and you can make, especially on Google, you can kind of see different people will tell you, like Dark Horse by Katy Perry, Horse by Katy Perry. You know, people will, they'll describe it in different ways or whatever. They'll misspell something. And then you can kind of see like, oh yeah, these are different people all saying that they want to hear this song. Flow Rider, right? With Low, I mentioned. People call it apple bottom jeans. People call it all kinds of things. Go ahead and take those duplicates or triplicates and find those, listen to them, okay? If you don't have them, if you don't know them, listen to it. See if it could work. And maybe it's not a banger, or it's not a floor filler kind of jam. Maybe it's not 120 BPM, and it's not even in that trap hip hop kind of BPM, lower BPM. It just, you're like, oh, okay, that's a song. But check it out and really think about it. Like, hey, a lot of people, if several people requested it, maybe you ought to think about it. I would pull it in, okay, and at least have it in your bucket. And maybe it's something that they would really respond to more so than you would think. Okay, so there you go. Multiple requests. Try to get it to, if you can fit it into the dance, that would be good. Be leery of the same person, though, requesting the same song over and over. Sometimes it could be like just somebody, like with my form, okay, I don't limit to one response. So some people came back and I could tell they were writing the same song a couple times. I was leery of that, but it's okay. It's going to happen. But watch out. Sometimes there might be joke songs on there. Like I think one of the kids for somebody, and that maybe it was 20 kids. I don't know. There were all kinds of requests for the Wheels on the Bus. And I did a little research with the student council, and they're like, nah, we don't want that Wheels on the Bus. We don't know where that came from. So it wasn't like a joke song or a meme for the school, but check it out. Just, you got to be careful of those things too. So you get your list, you look through, and maybe check some of those single requests too. If maybe you never heard of it, or you heard of the band but never the track, whatever, check it out, see what you think. But then kind of put that list on the side. Do not try to get 300 songs from that list, from that request list into your playlist and your crates. I don't think so. I don't think you need to play every song out of there. And I don't think that you can't play other songs that aren't on the request list, okay? That's your job as the DJ to make an awesome experience. So just because they don't put, Party Rock Anthem on there, it's probably going to work. It's probably going to be a jam. So you might want to drop it, They just might not be thinking about it. Or people have that mob mentality, as we talked about, when things are hopping and the energy's pumping and that song comes on, in their mind, I mean, think about it. They kind of came of age and, this year, they came of age in like 2010, 2011, somewhere around there. That song had just come out. That song has a lot of hype energy. It's kind of got some EDM flavor to it. It's got a big build and a big drop, and it's gonna take over their senses, and they're not even gonna have a choice. They're gonna have to sing it. They're gonna have to jump up and down to it. So you have to be the engineer of the night. Okay, so don't think you have to just play from their requests. That's my advice. But okay, so sourcing requests from the school's students, very important. Then do your research. I think researching things like Spotify's charts, you can look at the top 50 in the US. If you're from the US, they do a good job showing all the countries, and that's the charts. Look at those, see what's charting. Also look at the virals. You're gonna find some songs that are, 10 years old, 5 years old, whatever, that are kind of on the viral chart. And that's fine, that's great. Take those, kind of look at them, see what's at the top of those lists. Make sure you got them in your crates, okay? At least 10 of them, the top 10 of each of those lists, make sure you got them in your crates. And look for peak play counts, of course. You want to see what's kind of moving up the charts and what's got those high play counts, because that means it's, has a massive appeal. Now, sometimes you're going to find, like Kanye's Donda just came out, and some of those songs, some of those tracks are experimental. They're not going to work for a dance. They might, like Moon or the Donda chant or something, might work if you've got a certain crowd, or they might like think it's funny or whatever. I didn't play a lot of new Kanye. Hurricane, I think I dropped it, one of them. But in any case, I didn't do too much of the Kanye, just because I'm like, it's a little too experimental. So even if it's charting, no bug flying around. Even if it's charting, just go ahead and, use your judgment too. Okay, so do your research. What other places could you research? Well, I checked out Facebook groups, okay? There's a lot of DJ Facebook groups, and it's good to see just what people are saying, like the playlist group or others where people are saying, hey, I just did a homecoming. Here's some bangers that worked. Or some people say, hey, anybody got any fresh songs that sound really good or do really well with students because I'm about to do a homecoming or about to do a prom or whatever. Check out the responses. People they'll drip in a song or two. Check out Nick Spinelli. I love his channel, of course, and he does a great little, in his weekly show, he does New Fire that he drops. Most of those are wedding songs, but I tell you what, he talked about Amabi by Black Eyed Peas. I dropped that at my first homecoming and it went off. It went off so well. And I, just like Nick was talking about the wedding, I pretty much played the whole track. At least I got into the part where it speeds up in BPM. And then I mixed out like maybe in the middle of that section. But man, that song got everybody pumped up. So I played it at my second homecoming too, and it did the same thing. So sometimes look for inspiration from other DJs through the groups or whatever. Also, I ask my kids and kids that I know in my life about, hey, what's a good track? What's going on? Okay. And I think you'll be, they have access to things, okay? Like TikTok, of course, but other things, just other cultural connections that we don't as DJs, or we might not be in tune with. So ask the kids, hey, what do you listen to? What are you playing? What do you hear on when you're playing your games or whatever, or when you're kind of like hanging out with your friends? What are you listening to? Or what's the new hot track or whatever? And, you'll get the standard stuff like, oh man, my boy told me about Drake, of course, and Drake's new album is great, but you're going to hear some new things maybe that you didn't know or didn't think of. Okay, cool. So that is all about research. And of course you could do some other things, but those are some ideas I have on research. What worked great? I wanted to tell you guys what worked great. Pretty much any dance sing-along that was like almost like dance pop or hip hop that was between the 2010 and 2015, like the Keshas, the Pitbulls, those kind of songs went off really well. And I don't know if they're classics that will always work. A lot of them work at weddings, of course. But let's see. We'll see how they go. But those kids love those tracks. So they worked really well. Things like Fireball, We Are Who We Are, those jams. So in any case, what also worked was very new hip hop. Okay. So a couple hip hop, especially early in the night, and then maybe drip one in the dancing area where the kids would know, like has enough mass appeal where the kids would know, enough of the words. And then, anything by, I'll just call them female ratchet rappers. I probably should, that sounds bad, but you know what I'm talking about? Like Megan Thee Stallion, Cardi B, any of those newer female rappers, Doja Cat kind of fit in there a little bit. Not that they're all ratchet, but you know what I'm saying? Some of their lyrics are pretty ratchet, but anything by those guys, are gonna pop. People are gonna love that. So that worked really well. What didn't work, and I was surprised at, was Olivia Rodrigo. It didn't work. It was a mixed reaction, I'd say. When people would detect, like one time I dropped Driver's License, one time I dropped Good For You, and I thought, man, these songs are gonna pop off, but they did not. In both cases, I got the groans, and then when the chorus came out, it took over and people started singing or whatever. Or even when the verse kicked in, people started singing. But especially Good For You, I was surprised. Both of my homecomings didn't work so well, even though it had made an appearance on the request list. So I happen to like that song, and I thought it was doing really well. I thought kids liked it. My own sons like it and everything. So I don't know. Didn't work out too well. It was a little mixed. Jefferson Airplane, Somebody to Love. I thought that would drop. I thought I'd drop that because I got this little remix, and it's just like, it's a real short little thing. It's not even 40 seconds. It's just like the chorus, and it's kind of epic, that old classic voice. And I know that with Fleetwood Mac, Dreams kind of coming back into the foreground, and you've got like, Queen and the Elton John movies, and all this like rekindling of the past. I thought, oh man, this is going to go off. I've seen it go off at a couple festivals too over the summer, or not that I attended, but like watched YouTubes and things on Any case, it didn't go over well. People like kind of knew it, and I saw a couple people mouthing it, but anyway, that didn't work. Despacito, Despacito has, I don't know if it's just gone or if it's over, but people weren't super excited about that. So some other songs didn't work as well, but I just wanted to call out a couple that were kind of surprising. I thought Despacito, kind of a classic. I thought people get into it, slow, kind of a good BPM to kind of dance. A little slow too, but all, whatever, but didn't work out too well. So what else? Oh, with music, you gotta play with them. Play with the students a little bit, okay? Please do that. And I don't mean play like, clown around, play all kinds of silly songs all night long. Play with them just a little. Here's some examples. So during kind of like warming up, I dropped a trap version. Okay, there's no rapping. It was just like a trap beat version of the Wii Me Room. Okay, I don't know if you ever had a Wii growing up, or we were watching this, maybe your kids had a Wii, I don't know. I know I had a Wii with my kids, so we all played it, our family played it. And you would make these little characters called Me, M-I-I, Me's, and you would create it, and there was like this little song that went along with the lobby room, okay? And you just know it. If you ever touched a Wii, you would know this song, and a lot of kids grew up with that. So I just dropped that, and it got people going. It wasn't like a banger. I didn't drop it in the middle of the hype part of the dance, but I just dropped it like sort of like in the pre-party kind of section of the party section. And, kids got into it, and they were, hey, they were doing a little chanting and stuff like that. It was really cool. Any case, play with them a little bit like that. Also, I loved that troll video that came out recently where someone did Turn Down for What, and then they dropped Dancing Queen, and the guy gets all flustered and he gets all mad at the DJs. Well, I love that concept. So I made my own, because I wanted to get them. I wanted to troll them. And that song is so trollable. It's such a good song to lead up to a troll. And almost, I got to think some people got to be expecting it by this point. Any case, I did Turn Down for What. And then on the first, when he says, Turn Down for What? I dropped the theme song for the Backyardigans. Okay, so my thinking there was, oh, this is going to be great because these kids grew up with that show. It's been a long running series. A lot of kids love it. It gave a lot of kids like an adventure mindset because let's face it, like there's not a lot of, depending on where you live, if you're in the urban or maybe even suburbs, there's not a lot of woods to like run around or backyard adventures you can have. A lot of kids are on electronics. So in any case, that show explored, outside adventures and maybe encouraged them to do some things outside. In any case, Backyardigans thought it would really work. It worked. It pissed them off a little bit. Okay, they were not like super excited because man, a lot of them were getting so hyped for Turn Down for What, and then I dropped that on them, and I'm of course laughing. I'm like, yeah, and some people gave me the death look. Some people were like, boo. Some people were singing along and dancing right to it. And any case, I liked that kind of like hard left turn. And then I had to give them, you have to recover and do a really good job after a troll, right? You got to give them something really good. So I think in one case, I went into Get Low and gave them that, because that's such a banger and the kids love it and they feel a little, singing the words. Of course, now that might not fly at all schools. I definitely play all the censored versions of these songs, but you know what they're saying. They're screaming out the cuss words. They're screaming out the lyrics. Anyway, you got to give them a little bit of that. Treat them like adults, right? That's the other thing. I say play with them a little bit, and I think you should, okay? But don't play with them a lot. They're adults. Respect them, and only play with them after you've kind of won them over. After you've shown, hey, I can play those songs that, you're listening to right now on the radio or whatever. I can do a good job, be a good DJ. I can mix my songs. I can get hype with you guys, and I can, and then I'll play with you too, though. Okay, so that's a good rule of thumb. Don't just come out with clowning around on them. They won't respect you. Okay. All right. So, what did I do in terms of music? My last point, I guess I'd say, is is organize your crates around the event. So I'm looking at my DJ laptop right now, and I had 5 crates, for each, under the folder of each homecoming dance. So I had a pre-party crate, and those were songs like, jams just from the radio, or like, so here's what I have: Meant to Be by Baby Rex and Florida Georgia Line, In My Feelings by Drake, Kiss Me More by Doja Cat. Stuff that's not going to be bangers, Peaches by Justin Bieber. Not bangers, but, good songs that listen to. Escape by Bruno Mars, okay? I put all those in a pre-party, and I started about a half hour, 25 minutes before the start of the dance, just playing that on low. So, the administrators are getting into it, and I got some, Dance Monkey, Thunder by Imagine Dragons, stuff like that, okay? So stuff that's going to have mass appeal, but current enough to, this DJ knows what's up. But that's my pre-party crate, and I just put that on, whatever. I just kind of go through those songs. Then my party crate, and what I mean by party is like the first hour, first 45 minutes. People are going to be arriving. They're going to be finding a nook to kind of put their coat down, or their purse, or their whatever they brought. The kids don't really come with too much, but they do have some stuff they got to do that. If there's activities, they're going to be checking stuff out. They're doing their selfies. They're checking out. They're getting with their crews, their groups, and their peeps, and all that. So I think you kind of want to do like a party phase, okay? Like it's not a bunch of bangers. You're not hitting it, 60 mile an hour right out of the gate. So you can come in, and what I mean by that is like anything from, all kinds of good ones. Like Heat Waves by Glass Animals is a great one, right? Say So, if you're in that Doja Cat. Young, Wild, and Free by Wiz Khalifa. That's a classic that works really well. How about Graduation by Benny Blanco? Stuff like that. And you can even do a little bit of, a little Montero, a little Macarena, a little, I'm just looking through, God's Plan by Drake. Some things that are going to have some appeal and might have a moment or two of like, in God's Plan, that part where, I only love my bed and my mama, I'm sorry. That whole part, that gets people hyped, but it's not the whole song. Is kind of mellow around that one hype moment. Do those kind of things. I think because you're given breadcrumbs as to where the night's going, okay? So my next crate is the dance crate, and that's where I'm going to be pulling heavily from for the majority of the dance. So both of my homecomings were 3 hours. So I did about 45 minutes or so of that party music, and then I went all dance, okay, the rest of the time. So, 2 hours and 15 minutes or so. And I'm riding the wave. I might even dip back into the party crate because my other crate is called Slow Dance. And in both of these homecoming dances, I only did 2 slow dances. I think it's important, to give the kids a break, number one, and also an opportunity to, if they do want to slow dance, if they had it in their minds, maybe their parents told them about, years ago, your dad and I danced at a blah, blah, blah at homecoming. And whatever the stories they might have in their head, give them part of that narrative. Let them have a special moment. Or at least if it's a bunch of guys that went to homecoming together, or a bunch of girls, or a friend group, they're going to dance together. They're going to get in a little circle, and they're just going to hold shoulders, or whatever they're going to do. That's fine. Okay. Just give them a moment to do that. All right, guys. So that's, and one more crate that I make is just called Special. That would be like music that I'm playing underneath my introduction to the royal court, or if I'm introducing the king and queen, or whatever. So for example, here at this one, I played Kings and Queens, and then I played Congratulations by Post Malone. So in any case, just a couple, jams that I thought would go well with that. So those are my crates. Load those suckers up. Have way more music than you need. And please, 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 quick mix. You do not want to play the full song. Maybe in your pre-party set, you can do that. And if you have a song that everyone needs to hear the whole song, okay. But there's not many songs that you need to play the whole song, okay? So do the quick mixing. I think I was in and out, usually a minute and a half to 2 minutes. That was my max on most songs. And a lot of tracks these days aren't even that long. I mean, they're kind of like 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes anyway. So you might even get out at the minute mark, and maybe it's just a taste. It's just a chorus and a verse. It might be a chorus, 2 choruses and 1 verse or something like that. And it's just a taste, and then you're out. So please don't play the whole song. That will drive the kids nuts. Okay. I'm going to speak very briefly because I know this is getting to be a long video for you guys. But this would be a great time if you wanted to pause the video and then look down and make sure you click the like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And then you can unpause and keep watching because, you know, I know you want to get to these other sections. So just a reminder. Okay, guys, the next few sections I'm going to talk through just briefly as to my experience, because I want you to know, obviously, the timeline's great and the music is important, but there's other factors. So you want to make sure you think through them. My next category was sound. And in this case, my very first, the first homecoming that I did this season was supposed to be 400 to 500 kids. It turned out to be 528. It was supposed to be around that range. So what I did was I have my speakers that I own. I have a pair of JBL SRX 15-inch tops, and then I have JBL SRX 18-inch subs. And they pair together well. They're just on the speaker, you know, there's a pole between them. They work really well together. And I felt that that was plenty of sound for the small gym that I'd be playing in for this many people for that venue. Okay, so I was happy with that, and it turned out to work really well. I did feel like I would have liked a little more headroom. Okay, just a little more, not on my SRX tops. Those things are amazing. They're each 2,000 watts. My subs though, they're the SRXs. They're good and they're active. Okay, so they're nice, and I don't have a separate amp outside of it. You know, they're actually active amps or whatnot. They're not passive. So I was just not like, you know, I wasn't like really in love with the amount of bass I had. So I cranked those to the very tip top. I was almost peaking, and I did my little sound check when I was out in the crowd, and it was like, oh, I wish I had a little more to give, but it worked okay. It worked really well, and I didn't hear any complaints. In fact, I got a lot of rave reviews. My second homecoming, the sound design, I was to have, they told me 1,000 to 1,100 kids. It turns out there were 1,200 tickets sold and kids that came, and it was outside. Okay, so outside brings other challenges, definitely brings different issues. So in terms of sound, what I did was I used the same setup I told you about, and those tops, those SRX tops really can keep up with a lot of bass, and especially if you've got them on a crossover. So I just added 2 18-inch RCF subs, okay, that I rented. They were really great. I'm like, wow, these subs, they just had more oomph than my SRXs and my JBLs. I don't know, I probably had some settings wrong or something, I don't know. But they were really good. And so I had 4 subs. I gotta say the same thing. And maybe it was because we were outside, we were under a tent. I was like, ooh, I wish I had a little more bass to give. So, boy, I have seen, you probably have seen videos on YouTube of these huge setups for homecomings and proms and dances and things like that. And I'm always like, do you really need 8 subs? And I'm like, maybe you do, or maybe you need some sort of, I don't know. I'm definitely not a sound engineer by any means, but I just had like, everything was fine on sound check. Things sounded really great. Even when the bodies were in the, you know, under the tent and at the dance, everything sounded great, but it's just like, I could have used a little more bass. Okay, so in any case, I, again, didn't have any complaints, and the kids heard everything and everything was great. I just would have liked a little more bass. But guys, that's kind of my experience with sound. One other thing I'll tell you, make sure to think about how your sound is projecting out. So on my first homecoming dance with the 528 students, I was on a stage, and it was kind of an interesting room. It was kind of more long than it was wide, but since I was on the stage, I make sure to point my speakers. You know, you have two holes usually on powered speakers, and I use the holes in the front so that the speakers would be like an angle pointing down. And I felt like that gave more dispersion across the crowd and made sure that the folks in the very front near the stage would hear the same amount of volume of music. And that worked really, really well. I didn't have to have like a fill speaker in the middle or anything like that. Okay, so that was sound. Next was lighting. Okay, next thing to think through is lighting. Lighting, I think can be, you can go way overboard or way underboard with lighting. I think a couple things I would say. I really, really don't like the look of the laser dots. I used to have a gig bar. I used to do that for weddings and other things. And I got away from that based on what I heard from a lot of DJs, pro DJs, that would be on, obviously the Joe Buns, the Nick Spinellis, just all the, all the pro DJs that we all watch and listen to and learn from, Barr, others, Rick Webb. And I got away from the laser dots. I'm like, that's not a look that I think the kids want. I don't think anybody really wants that. Maybe very small children, but again, these are young adults. You got to treat them like adults. So I found that number one, gotta have wash. You gotta have, so I love my Chauvet Wash FX2s. I use them for pretty much every event. So I'm like, I'm gonna use those. And I think that's enough. I think it's enough for the kind of venues that I played, the outside under the tent and the gym. I felt like it was enough. I thought that it was enough. But I also needed something a little more exciting. So I brought some moving heads, and I got some ADJ moving heads, and I really like them. They worked really well. They're the focus spots, and I programmed shows in the My DMX Go alongside the wash effects. So I've got the spots going, and of course I'm going to show you clips here and whatever, but I felt like that really, really did the trick. It wasn't too much. It wasn't too little, like where I felt like, I'm not lighting up the crowd and I don't have enough exciting. There was enough excitement with everything going on. It was very good, okay? And everybody seemed to really like it. The administrators went nuts, like, whoa, we've never seen. I mean, the one school is a little more of a simpler school, and I guess they just haven't really seen a lot of good DJ light shows here in the Midwest or whatever. So I won some bonus points for my cool light show. So, but that's all I took, guys, for both of those. In addition, though, I had my Ape Labs Maxis, and I used those for the totems. I have glow totems, so I put my moving heads on top of those, and I lit those up. I have 8 coins in my infinity booth that that I used at both homecoming dances, and I put some of those uplights behind me, so it would light up the stage. And during the hypest moments of the dance, I turn it on the sound active, okay, the music mode in Ape Labs terms, and it's so good. It's so good, and that just had everything going to the music. And then of course my DMX show from my wash effects and my moving heads, it was really, really, really good. So I feel good about lighting, but I didn't go all out. I didn't do truss. I didn't go nuts. I didn't hire a company to help bring in lights. I didn't invest $10,000, $20,000 in lights myself. And I felt like it was fine. Now, maybe somebody wants more of a club type homecoming. That's fine. If they want that, then maybe that I'm not the guy to give it to them. Okay, I can't, I'm not a production company, or maybe they need to hire lighting and DJing separately, which is totally cool. A lot of groups, schools might do that. But we all have our limits or whatever, the box we play in, right? And that's kind of my box. And it worked really, really well. All right, electricity. So electricity, I'm not gonna lie, it was very stressful for me because I wanted to make sure that we didn't lose power. I knew that, I know that intuitively my subs draw a lot of current, and I'm gonna have these lights, I'm gonna have, speakers up to the max. I gotta be careful that I'm not gonna pop a circuit. And added complexity, my second homecoming was outside and had no access to power. So I had to do everything by generator. So, a small time guy like me, I was a little frightened. I had not done a full event. I've done an event by generator before, but it's been, with 2 tops, and it was a backyard party, okay? So what am I gonna do? Well, I had to figure out first at the school with the gym, how am I gonna get access to multiple circuits? I know enough, I've watched enough gig logs, I've seen enough of like Rick Webb, and especially the guy that blows my mind is like Arnaldo Offerman and guys like that are just way above like the level of school dances that I'd be doing. So I know enough to find separate circuits, okay? And I wanted to say, I felt that I could do everything, including my controller, my laptop, my lighting, everything on one circuit, okay? From that perspective, because I didn't have that much lighting. And then my speakers, all of my speakers on another circuit. At least at the school gym, because I had 4 speakers, and I'd run them all on a circuit before. So, like a 15 amp typical circuit or 20 amp circuit. So, got to the school, they actually had power laid out pretty well, and I was able to go to 2 different circuits, and everything was gold. However, I did during I think I turned up, once you level set everything, don't mess with your master, okay? I turned up my master a little too hard, and one of my subs just shut off, okay? Now, luckily, you couldn't really tell, and it was it wasn't like the hypest part of the dance, but the sub shut off. And I figured what happened was I had my one sub, okay, this is important, or at least I think it's important lesson learned for me. One sub going into a breakout. I don't want to call it a surge bar, but it's basically a big power breakout. Okay, I had one sub going into the breakout. I had a top going into the breakout. Okay, and then I had the other sub and the other top together going down like I don't know, maybe a 14 gauge wire or something like that, a typical extension cord into the breakout. That was my problem, I think. I think too much current was going along that 14 gauge, or maybe it was a 16 gauge extension cable. So when I did the next homecoming, I made sure to go every speaker element right to the breakout box, okay? Right to my breakout, which is, again, it's like I don't want to call it a surge bar, but I just bought it. It's essentially a breakout that takes your circuit and then gives you multiple connections to it. And the cable that I have behind it is like thick. It's like 10 gauge or 8 gauge or something like that. It's rated really high for a lot of current. So I'm thinking that was my problem, because at my second event, I didn't have any problems when I ran directly speaker right to the breakout. So that might help you. Don't daisy chain extension cords, and more so like surge bars and things like this. Don't put multiple subs on one surge bar and then take one wire unless it's got a lot of current capacity, okay? I think that's what happened to me. But everything else worked fine. And by the way, that sub, I reset it, everything came back online, and it was fine. And I don't think anybody really even noticed. Okay, what else with power? With the outside event, I tried to figure out, using some math, that how much of generator power that I would need. And I did a couple calculations. It's kind of, it was a little hard for me, even though I studied voltage and amperage and all this good stuff way back in school, but I didn't really remember a lot of that. So I tried to figure it out myself. I should know these things a little bit better, I guess. But I ended up calling a buddy, and he talked me through it, and we figured out that a 10,000 watt generator would be plenty for us to get the party going with the configuration I talked about. The 4 subs based on their current draw, the 2 tops, and my lighting rig and everything else. So just to be safe, I brought 2 generators, a 10,000 watt that I actually rented from my friend who just talked me through it, and I used another 2,500 watt Craftsman that I have just around the house for like things like the sump pump or whatever, if anything goes out. And I've used that a couple times for like the backyard DJ event I told you guys about. So that I used to power my booth, my lights, and it worked great, flawless. And in fact, I think we had to top it off a little bit, but it would have ran the whole evening on one tank. The 10,000 watt it didn't even budge. Like, it barely used gas. So it really did a great job on the subs. I didn't have any power outs. I didn't have any problems whatsoever. And I drove those to the max. Not my SRX tops. Those actually, I was at like 50%. Those things are beasts. But my 4 subs were all maxed out. And so we did good. So electricity, I guess my tip is phone a friend. Talk to somebody who knows what they're doing. Don't try to just rely on your back of the napkin math. Okay. Staging, a couple things about staging. I knew I was in a stage in our first homecoming. I knew that there'd be a stage. I'd be on a gym stage. That was great. It's like they call it not an auditorium, but a cafetorium, like a cafeteria, but it's an auditorium. Anyway, multi-purpose room. So they had a stage and it was perfect. And the stage maybe was 4 foot high or so, like something like that. And we were on top, we were on it, and I could see everybody. My lights could project out. My speakers, as we talked about, could project out. That's great. And a natural safety barrier. You have to think, you do not want kids like getting into like a jumping session or something like that, and they're rocking out and they push each other or whatever, and they push and they knock over your stuff, or they fall into the speakers or whatever. You want to try to get up for those perspectives. I didn't have anything there wasn't going to be anything for me at the tent, at the homecoming with the tent. So I found a guy who rented a riser to me, and he came out and he actually put it in place, set it up, and then took it down the next day. So that was really effective, and I appreciate that guy helping me out. But the riser was only maybe 2.5 feet, maybe 3 foot tall, more like 2.5 feet, but it was plenty. It got me above the crowd and it created that natural barrier. So that was really good. Okay, and I didn't put my subs up there. I kept my subs on the floor, but I had my other gear and my totems, everything kind of up. It was really, really good. It worked out well. And it just gives you a little more presence too. You got to think, when you talk about staging, of course, first think about function, right? Like, am I going to be safe, and do I have all the stuff I need? But then you want to think about form. Am I going to look good? Are the kids going to be like, wow, that's cool, that's dope? Or are they going to say, oh, yeah, here's this guy sitting behind a facade in the corner. You can't even see it, what he's doing. You can't even see his head. You know, who knows what's going on? It could be an iPod back there. Who knows? Any case, just some couple thoughts. And hopefully, I mentioned logistics, I think, in there too. Things like safety. And one of the things I realized also, logistics-wise, is that I didn't take requests at my second homecoming, because the first time I did take requests, and I had an assistant with me, one of my sons, and he would, like, if someone approached me, wanted a request, I would say, hey, talk to him. Or he would try to intercept. And it was crazy. It was crazy. These kids, you give them a little bit and then just keep coming. And it was just too much. I was on the decks, and by the time I would go check in with my son, he would show me a list on his phone that he had typed out from requests. And it was like, 20 songs. And I'm like, I can't just, play those 20. And then there'd be another 20. And I thought, that's not a really good way to do it. So on the second one, I told my other son who was assisting me, and my brother-in-law who came with me to help, I'm like, guys, if someone asks for a request, I'm going to just point them to you. Or if you see them coming up to me, just intercept or whatever. Tell them that we already took requests through the Google form, and the administrators, if they push, just say the administrators said, okay, they were okay with these, but no other requests. So just blame it on them, okay? I wouldn't say that would be the best, but if a student really, really was pressing, you gotta save yourself. Or you could always do the thing that I do at weddings, like, I'll try to get to that. Your helpers could say that, right? Like, I'll try to get to that, and we never do. Or maybe we do because it just happens to be on the request list or whatever that you've already prepared, or the crates that you made. What I'm trying to say is, don't give yourself the extra burden. Think through the logistics of performing this school event, and taking requests might be something that you can do, or you can have your assistant do, or you could say, hey kids, just here's a piece of paper, fill it out, or text me here. There's 101 ways you can do requests, but I kind of like the second event that I did, the second homecoming, where I said no requests, and it worked great. And once the kids see that you're not taking the requests because they've already given you the requests, before, and that you're kind of doing your thing and they trust you because you're dropping jams and you're getting them dancing, guess what? They're not going to care, and they stop coming. They stop bothering you with their requests. They might still shout out, like play whatever. But that's okay. Okay. And maybe you could take a couple of those, but just my thoughts. Guys, this is a long video, but I wanted to share all of these thoughts as they were very fresh in my mind, as I just came off 2 very successful, awesome homecoming dances. And I hope that these tips can help you if you're thinking of planning your own homecoming dance or prom or whatever soon, okay? Thank you guys for watching my channel and my video. I really appreciate you, and I'll talk to you next time.